It's going to help us too. Hello again. Now, registration of ANC delegates underway in Polokwane ahead of the party's Limpopo provincial elective conference this weekend. More than 1,000 delegates are set to cast their ballots at the conference. ANC's provincial chairperson, Stan Mothapo, is seeking a third term. He's entering the battlefield with MEC for Public Works, Dixon Masemula. Delays and disputes over processes always prevail at ANC conferences. Let's get the latest now and find out how things are looking ahead of the weekend. I'm joined by reporter Moloko in Polokwane and senior reporter Siphamandla Goge is in Mokopane. Gentlemen, good afternoon and thank you very much for your time. Can I begin with you, Moloko, in Polokwane? What's happening there? What's the latest you can tell us? As the saying goes, the old cliche, is it all systems go? Is the ANC ready for this weekend?
Well, Braden, I am also in the Ranch Hotel, at the Ranch Hotel, which is just 25 kilometers south of Polokwane. This is the conference venue of the African National Congress in Limpopo. It is meant to get underway today. Registration process, we understand, started yesterday, continued up to today, but as matters stand, there are quite a number of delegates who have already made their way into the conference venue. And of course, earlier we were speaking to some of them. You are kind of like getting a sense that they are excited, looking forward to this particular elective Congress. Now, yesterday, Braden, you would remember that when the provincial leaders of the ANC were briefing the media, there was an issue of one regional or region, which is the Waterberg, where they were saying it had written to the provincial leaders to say they want to have their own regional conference today so that they can go into the provincial conference as a solid or newly elected region. Now, we understand that the PEC has taken a decision to dissolve that particular regional executive committee structure. They then converted them into a regional task team. And earlier, I spoke to the spokesperson for that REC of Waterberg, Mr. Matumi Mremi Tawiatswala, who told me that he is not able to either deny or confirm that decision, saying that it would rather be the Provincial Executive Committee that confirms that. However, he told me that as the REC, they had taken a decision to support the incumbents, then Mothapo. But as they say, the Congress or the conference is a conference of branches. Maybe let's listen to him when he was talking about the disputes that they have had at the regional level.
I think one of our region was one of those that were disputed highly. Speaking here, I speak as also as the chairperson of the Regional Dispute Resolution Committee. We had on our table about 35 disputes from branches, but we diligently dealt with those disputes. But the guidelines also allows branch members to go to have an appeal at the level of the Provincial Dispute Resolution Committee, and then 16 out of 35 were able to take their disputes to the Provincial Dispute Resolution Committee, and from there about 5 of them went to the National Dispute Resolution Committee, and they've been finalized. Sitting where we are quite happy that when we start singing Gosiskelele in this hall, there will not be any person from our region singing a song anti this conference to say we have robbed them or so. We tried by all means. What encourages us is that most of the decision of the Regional Dispute Resolution Committee were held by the Provincial Dispute Resolution Committee and the National Dispute Resolution Committee. Just 2 of them that were differing with us.
Okay, so many issues still coming out there. Siphamandla, as usual, I mean, the ANC will deploy some NEC members to oversee the process. And what have they been saying ahead of this weekend regarding the Limpopo conference?
Allow me to just brief you and our viewers before I answer a question that we have actually moved from Mokopane. We are now in Limpopo 2 at the conference venue which is the Ranch Resort in Polokwane. This is where this conference was set to get underway at 10 a.m. today. As it is the norm with ANC conferences of late, there are always delays. So according to the draft program, this conference was set to get underway at 10 a.m. It has not started. We went to Mokopane earlier on simply because the Regional Executive Committee of that region, which is Waterberg, had written to the Provincial Secretary of the ANC in Limpopo, Soviet Likhanyane, asking that they be allowed to convene a one-day regional conference on the eve of the provincial conference. According to their proposal, they would have convened their regional conference today, and they would have sent a delegation representing them to the provincial conference of the ANC in the province. However, they have been unable to do that. The PEC did not accede to their request to do so. So also the PEC and the NEC of the ANC has not officially confirmed that they have been disbanded. It's a question we tried to put to Pulemabe, who speaks on behalf of the ANC, but he said, well, let's wait for the officials and the PEC to finish their meeting, and then they will confirm that matter. Now, there is a meeting that is underway. Just to get back to your question, there is a meeting that is underway between NEC members of the ANC as well as Provincial Executive Committee members of the ANC in Limpopo. They are discussing about the final details and logistics of this conference. At the center of that meeting is the issue of the credentials. From today till Sunday or Monday, our viewers will become familiar with that term again, credentials. So yesterday's meeting between the NEC and the PEC resolved that the Provincial Secretary, Soviet Likhanyane, must go back and polish the credentials that will be presented at plenary. Usually ANC conferences spend hours discussing, debating the issue of the credentials. So right now there is a report back session to that meeting of the NEC and PEC members by the Provincial Secretary on the issue of the credentials. Pulemabe explains.
The Provincial Executive Committee that is sitting now is seized with those matters. The briefing that we'll have after this will effectively be able to provide more clarity there. But the delegates of Waterberg have been duly registered, accredited, they will be participating in this conference. So it means that, because, Khotazo, one thing you must understand is that this is a conference of branch delegates. 90% of those who constitute conferences of the African National Congress are delegates from branches. So, udula conference ya ANC, even if you don't have a regional leadership, you come from a branch, the basic unit of the African National Congress, you will still be allowed to participate in conference. And that is one thing that we must appreciate.
Okay. Well, there's a clarity there about who takes part in such conferences in Nome. But you mentioned the name, you mentioned the word Waterberg earlier, and you were talking about a district, of course, in Limpopo. But it's been in the news recently regarding the president, Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, in terms of his farm. I mean, it's in Limpopo. I'm just wondering, because sometimes some of these issues play out in the public ahead of a conference. They have a way of finding expression at conferences or in preparations. Any word from the ANC about this development?
Well, the ANC spokesperson Pulemabe is trying to stay mum on the matter. He's keeping mum, not saying much really, except to say the ANC has not discussed the matter. It is one of the talking points here in Limpopo, as some delegates are commenting on that issue, whereby the former state security spy boss, Arthur Fraser, has laid criminal charges against President Cyril Ramaphosa following a burglary in one of his farms here in Limpopo. So delegates, it's one of those topics that are being informally discussed here among the delegates as to how damaging the allegations are. But the ANC has not, officially discussed the matter. Pulemabe saying if and when there is a need to do so, the National Executive Committee of the ANC will be seized with the matter. As Joe Komane will show you here, this is where the delegates are entering. Buses are arriving, offloading the delegates. But in terms of the official comment and statement by the ANC, Pulemabe tried by all means to say, look, the matter has not been discussed by the ANC. If the party feels that the matter is urgent, they will persist with it. I asked them whether the ANC thinks this matter is not urgent based on how it is affecting the president of the governing African National Congress, who's the president of the country. All the allegations contained there, and Pulemabe saying, well, give us space and time, we will respond in due course should there be a need. He said the statement by the presidency is enough for now. Let's take a listen.
The ANC has not reflected on these issues. We have never had a national executive committee to talk about this. We will go, when we have an NEC, if the NEC reflects on these matters and we feel a need to comment on issues, in our statement detailing the outcomes, whether of the NWC or the NEC, will also reflect on this. But we have never had an NEC meeting that really reflected on these matters. Safe to say that the presidency has already responded to this.
Okay, there we're going to have to wait and see, Siphamandla, what happens there. Both of you are at the venue of this regional conference. There's a PEC meeting happening. The sense of anticipation, Moloko, I guess, by the people who are arriving, the delegates, we can see them there where Siphamandla is standing, I guess is growing, and they are waiting for the opening of this conference, which can be later this afternoon, Moloko.
Well, Braden, this particular conference was meant to start early at around 10 in the morning. Delegates continue to arrive. I can see they are coming through the check-in point there. Some of them, of course, they are just loitering around. They have just had lunch. But as matters stand, it would appear, given the fact that we have seen a number of vehicles and a number of buses, and as we were coming in, you could see heightened security. I think, if I recall, we were searched, literally our vehicle was searched 4 to 5 times before we could even get onto this conference venue. According to the ANC, the first thing that after opening this particular conference, they are going to be going for the election of the 5 top officials. And we are expecting that the results would be out by tomorrow morning on Saturday. But of course, that is entirely dependent on whether this particular Congress will start on time, given the fact that we don't know what is keeping the PEC so long in the meeting that has been going on since earlier this morning.
Thank you very much, Moloko there, Moloko, and to Siphamandla Goge.